project interest rates stayed on hold for a third month on Tuesday. What impact will that have as we lead into spring? Joining me to chat property is REA Group economist Anne Flaherty. And I think a lot of Australians were relieved on Tuesday, and whether or not that's going to have a massive impact, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, you're right. I think a lot of people were very relieved to see interest rates on hold for the third consecutive month. And indeed, it seems like that pause in interest rates is really helping to push up market activity. We've seen a really big increase in the number of homes being listed for sale recently. This weekend, we've got a bumper weekend for auctions. And as we move further into September as well, that selling activity is going to pick up even further.
How does the selling activity compare to the same time last year?
Well, if we look at auctions, there are 12% more auctions this weekend compared to the same week last year. Overall, we have started to see listing volumes increase from last year's level. If we think about where we were 12 months ago, interest rates were rising very rapidly, consumer sentiment was very low, people felt very nervous about market conditions. We've actually seen from our own research that there's been a real shift in the sentiment of property owners. So at the start of the year, most property owners considered it a bad time to sell. Sentiment was very low. What we've now seen is a real shift in that sentiment. We've seen that perceptions around buyer demand are that there's more buyers out there, there's more buyers looking, and that's helping the confidence of people looking to sell as well.
And people looking to sell can also sort of confidently step into that breach and think that they're going to get what they want.
Well, that's exactly right, because of course, one barrier to selling is knowing that if I sell my home, will I be able to find another home that meets my needs? And because there have been so few properties for sale during the first half of this year, the fact that we're now seeing lots more properties hit the market is giving people that confidence that if they are to sell up, they are going to find that next property. It's also good for first home buyers as well. We've got more supply coming out online. There's more choice for buyers.
The rental market, we just saw that story out of Queensland, and it's concerning because it's very challenging at the moment. Your observations of the rental market?
Yeah, well, our latest vacancy data, which you just reported on, is really very, very concerning. We have a national vacancy rate of 1% at the moment, which is a record low. And in fact, in Brisbane, in Adelaide and Perth, the vacancy rate is sitting well below 1%. So it's around 0.7% in both Perth and Adelaide. This suggests that it's really, really tough out there for people to find a rental property. It also just, it means that rents are going to continue rising. So people who are really feeling the squeeze from those higher rents, unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any relief.
People are exacerbated, aren't they? Because they feel there's not being enough done to try and help.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's quite a lot of reasons that have coincided to cause the current rental crisis. And ultimately, the long-term solution is that we need to increase the supply of housing to keep up with our growing population and our need for more rental accommodation. However, what we have seen is that the supply of new homes has started to slow. Of course, there are massive issues in the development sector at the moment. It is very expensive to build. And of course, high interest rates also add to that burden. But ultimately, we need to start seeing, the governments work together to really increase this supply of housing. There are a lot of words being thrown out there at the moment, and it is good to see government recognition of this issue. But the question is, how long is it going to take for this supply deficit to catch up?
And one of the challenges, just finally, Anne, is that there was a mass exodus to regional areas, remote areas where people could fully confidently say that they can work and hold down jobs. There is a bit of a push to get people back into office space, which I'm sure is having some effect.
Well, what's also interesting to look at, vacancy rates in regional areas fell really, really low during the COVID years. That hasn't really changed. Those vacancy rates are still sitting very low. On the other hand, we saw vacancy rates absolutely skyrocket in our inner city areas during the pandemic, particularly in Melbourne and Sydney. But now what we're seeing is in these city markets, the vacancy rates have fallen well below pre-COVID levels at this point. So there's really no market where we're seeing, tenants have lots and lots of choice. Vacancy rates are tight everywhere. I think, though, that, for businesses that operate in CBD markets, they are actually benefiting from the increase in residents in our cities at the moment. The reality is that even if an office worker goes into their office 4 out of 5 days a week, that's still a 20% reduction in foot traffic overall. So, on the other hand, you can think about, from the perspective of retailers, an increase in the population of people living in the cities is going to help to make up for some of that lost traffic from office workers.
Absolutely. Anne, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, you too.